Hey everybody, it's Brian Foreman with the Campbell University Center for Church and Community, and it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce my friend Jonathon Shattuck, the pastor at Lamberth Memorial Baptist Church just outside of Roxborough, North Carolina. It's a special place. Jonathon can probably share 1,000 reasons why it's a special place, but I'm excited that he has agreed to be with us today. And Jonathon, like we do with every time we start these conversations, I'll just ask you, what's good?
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. A lot of things in a crazy world. So, especially for me right now, what's good is in the midst of a crazy summer, I had my third child was born, and our oldest started kindergarten, and Nora kind of finds her way in the middle there in between. But we're in a pretty good place in our family, as crazy as things are, and life is crazy, but it's good right now.
All right, so I got to ask you a question because I've always heard this about middle children. Did you know Nora was going to be a middle child? I mean, did she have that disposition before y'all decided to have a third?
No, and I still don't think she has figured out that she's the middle child. Hey, let's see. Garrison just turned 5 months old a couple of days ago, and she's just now wanting to hold him and interact with him and warm up to the idea that she's no longer the baby. She still knows she's daddy's baby, but not the baby. So it's definitely a warm up process.
That's too funny. Okay, so at Lamberth, you've been there for 2.5 years,
Uh-huh.
coming up on 3 in June, right?
Yep.
Uh, Garrison was born 5 months ago. Nora was already born before you got to Lamberth, is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So now you've got this new baby that the church is probably claiming is their baby too. I mean, they claim all three of your kids, but now this is their baby, right?
Oh yes.
And y'all are in the parsonage next door, right?
Yep.
So so what's that like?
Um, Interesting. Really, really good. It's I think unfortunately the pandemic has kind of taken away a little, and Karis, my wife, is doing her best at keeping everybody updated with pictures on Facebook and as close to each other as we can get safely, especially with a newborn and a new system that we aren't sure how his body's going to react. And so, as being as safe as we can, we're trying to keep them all involved. But they are definitely, for sure, have claimed all three, but this one is definitely theirs.
That's great. You know, one of the things that I've always been intrigued by, particularly when I'll be driving through the country, or whatever the case may be, and I'll see a church with a parsonage next to it, and it springs up, as a member of the clergy, it springs up 1,000 thoughts. Would I ever want to live that close to the church? Man, that's a lot of living in a fishbowl. But then there's those other sides of it that are so positive, right? Like your kids grow up, and the church is part of their home. I mean, that has to be a really powerful thing, image for you guys, right?
It definitely is. It's kind of funny. Hannah, our oldest, is kind of like I call her the gatekeeper or the guardian of the church, if you will. And she'll always run through the house, and when someone is pulling through the parking lot, even if it's someone we don't know, and sometimes folks would stop. It's right off the highway, so sometimes folks will stop and kind of take a moment, I think, to rest or maybe answer a call. And she'll run through the house and say, "Daddy, somebody's at church." And you're exactly right. I think that the element of the church being there so close, especially for Hannah, is even more so real than the fishbowl concept that we often hear about. I think that whether or not Lamberth realizes it or not, they've got a guard dog, if you will, even more so for the church than anyone is. Then we're worried about folks watching us.
That's fantastic. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about your ministry there at Lamberth. Um, you guys are well. Let me start back over and say that we're recording this a little over a week and a half after the presidential election. I guess almost 2 weeks now after the presidential election. I've lost track of time of when that actually happened because it still doesn't feel like it's over.
Yeah,
Um,
understandable.
right? And so when we're in a world now where so many people are at each other, there's brother turning against brother, there's there's families that can't sit at the same table, regardless of COVID or not, but because of politics, right? uh, and you have this church that is the community. It's family. The way that your folks relate to each other. How have y'all navigated this season? Um, and maybe even share the story that we were talking about with before coming hitting record.
One of the biggest things for me is I still consider myself to be a fairly young minister and being in ministry now for 10 years, but in a pastoral role for 5 years now. I am a lover of history, and especially the period of the 19th century there in the 10 to 15 years leading up to the American Civil War, and of course, the American military history of the Civil War. But um, I'm not really as big on the history as I am the memoirs,
Mm.
and I love to hear the actual accounts and um, and to hear and see almost that disdain, unfortunately, that began to develop in people's voices. And to hear and see that and to have read that growing up, now I make it a priority in my ministry. I'm not overtly political, and I try to be. I guess I'm trying to find a way to say this to keep my politics and there and present as a reminder of what Christ has called us to do, not to make it a political issue. But before election, Sunday before the election, I just pretty much finished my sermon with a call for love. And I think that reading some of these memoirs and seeing some of these words and even one that I have on my shelf right now, two brothers, I believe they were out of Ohio, and one went for the North and one went with the South, and the voice of and the writing that they had and the love that they still shared for each other and held on and looked forward to, even in all the things that divided them. And that was kind of that Sunday before the election. I just reminded everyone and pretty much begged and pleaded that regardless of the outcome, that we would still love each other as Americans, but primarily as brothers and sisters in Christ and resident aliens, and looking forward to a kingdom that is to come, kind of stealing there from uh, William Willimon and Hauerwas.
Hmm.
But just, on November 4th, I'm still your pastor. And if you call me in the middle of the night, I'm still coming. And, regardless of what is said or done or any disagreements that might arise, uh, we love each other, and we are going to be the hands and feet of Christ.
Yeah, yeah, that's so encouraging because you look at the headlines, and so many of the headlines are how this faction of the church is going this way, this faction is going the other, and and I guess I can deal with that's sort of that 30,000 foot level. But then when you realize that these are people's lives,
Yeah.
these are people they've worshiped next to, or sung in the choir next to, or been in one another's homes for all of these years, and now they're looking at each other, and something has told them that's a different person all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And look, this isn't a political statement. Well, it's a hugely political statement that I'm about to make. It's everybody.
Yeah.
Right? We all are exposed to that, and sometimes we react, and from one side or the other. And so to stop and come to a worshiping community and be reminded by a pastoral leader that I'm still going to love you. I'm
Yeah.
still going to show up for you. I mean, we see that in the words and the actions of Christ over and over again. I,
Oh
I
yeah.
I'm gonna walk with you. I'm gonna be there with you, right?
Yeah.
Every step of the way. So I am so glad to, and it's so encouraging for me in my heart to hear of a church that is able to do that. That's walking through that. Apparently, my wife's upset with me because she just heard that and she's leaving. I don't know if you heard the door chimes in the background, but we spare no expense here in the sound effects, man.
Oh yeah.
So, but
The joys of Zoom.
that's right. The joy, and now we're secure again. Um, but what I think fascinates me in all of this is it's really easy to get caught up in the headlines. But
Oh
when you
yeah.
start talking to a lot of folks, they're not talking about the big headlines. They're still talking about what's happening with their neighbor.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what we have to do, because there are so many good things for us to celebrate. And when we go into those echo chambers, like you were talking about beforehand, um, you get in the hallways of divinity school, and everybody's chirping and griping about stuff, and then you leave and you're like, man, that didn't make me feel any better.
Yeah. If anything, I feel a little torn down now.
Why did I choose this
Yeah.
career? Right. But
Unfortunately, I think it chose us, not we that chose it.
yeah, that's true too. Why are we making it harder on ourselves by just complaining?
Yeah. I
Right.
think another thing we had going for us coming into this also has been our vision and our goal this year as we began a new church year was missions. And Donnie and I and the church went to Kenya back in January of 2019. And it was definitely an experience, one that I could do a whole a whole Zoom call on probably. It's good and bad and a lot in between. But the biggest push for us this year has been in the last couple of months as we started this new church year is mission work and how that looks here in our own community. And so the beautiful thing about it is, like you just said, a lot of times, especially in as polarized as many things are in America right now, and you've got to be either this or that. And I think for us, it's been very beneficial that we were already more focused on what things look like here in our own community. And so instead of that 30,000 foot kind of skim that tends to widen us, we've been focused on. We did a really awesome school supply drive for the elementary school that's right up the road. And the day we took the goods to the teachers, we also brought them lunch from a local restaurant. And we're able to kind of, as much as socially distancing is allowed, we were able to kind of get in the cafeteria and talk to the teachers and kind of, make an avenue for future things to do together. And so I think that in a good way, we've almost been busy looking around us for missions and how to be useful and how to really be the hands and feet, to the point that we've kind of, at least for this moment, forgotten to look back and figure out why we should be mad with somebody who's 3 pews ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that oftentimes when we talk about giving, we give because it makes us a more generous person. We
Yeah.
serve because it makes us a more thoughtful and generous person as well. So to be in spaces where people express gratitude, they don't say, "Hey, can I have that bag of school supplies?" But the only way I'm going to take them is if you agree with my political stance, right?
Nope.
No, the common ground is we're serving children, we're loving kids, we're trying to do the education piece, we're doing all of that stuff, and that's our common ground.
Yeah.
Man, what a difference it makes when we start and with the what brings us together as opposed to what separates us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you've mentioned a couple of times the thing that pulls us together, that piece is that call on who we are, right? Whether it be a calling as a vocational minister, a calling as a teacher, but more importantly, just simply the calling to be the hands and feet of Christ in our world.
Oh yeah.
And y'all are doing it. And y'all are doing it.
Trying our
Whether
best.
whether it's Hannah guard dog in the church or dog guard in the church. I mean, Garrison living into his role as a church baby, or Nora just continuing to be daddy's baby.
Oh yeah.
We all have a call, man, and it's just remarkable to catch up with you and hear about the good things that are happening in your community, good things that are happening in your church. And man, the perspective, just the story on the brothers during the Civil War, if those two can come back and sit at a table together
Mm.
after an armed conflict,
Yeah.
um, what's separating any of our families right now?
Yeah. There's certainly still hope.
Yeah, and Jonathan, that's good. That's good, and you have been a blessing to me today for sharing that. I am so grateful, and I hope that as people see this, um, that they'll catch it as a blessing as well, because when we're focused on the things that matter, um, it's remarkable about how God can teach us some things along the way.
Oh yeah.
We don't have it figured out. We aren't supposed to have it figured out,
Yeah.
but we catch glimpses of the divine when we're paying attention for it.
And I've learned that here in the pandemic that sometimes you accidentally catch glimpses. It's funny. We spent the May through November creativity. I have learned in the pandemic in a new sense. I feel like I could teach a divinity school course on it. But
All right,
this
pitch it to me. Pitch it to me. What you got?
this divine spark that might accidentally find us sometimes. Our neighbors text me. She texted me one day and said, "Your sermon was good Sunday." And I was like, "I didn't see you. Were you there? Were you in your car? Did you get out?" Because for a while we were in the parking lot and had a trailer in the front yard and we were preaching. And she said, "No, I was on my front porch and I was drinking coffee with my husband and we heard every word." And so this neat aspect of never thought I would go to Kenya, check. Never thought I'd preach on the back of a truck, check. Never thought I'd baptize a father and a son in the back of a Rubbermaid container on the back of a trailer. So divine spark has certainly found a way to make itself known in craziness.
Man, God shows up.
He does.
Even
It
in a
blows my socks off when he does.
even in a Rubbermaid tub, man, God shows up.
Yep.
Um,
Can't wait to write that one in the memoir.
I'll be the first to read it, Jonathan. Hey, thank you for spending some time with me today. I'm grateful, and prayers and blessings on the continued ministry that you have there in Roxborough, and the people that you're loving on. They're special to me, and loving on them too. And so glad that you are their pastor and that they are your congregation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. They send their love too.
You got it. Take care, Jonathan.